Everyone. Good afternoon. Good morning for guys who are on the other side of the world. My name is Saif Abdelghani. I'm a product manager and a local category manager in Electrolux Home Appliances. Thanks you all for joining today's webinar on techniques for attaining speed in new product development projects. This webinar was supposed to be in cooperation with the team from the IABA and PDMA. I apologize again for the delay and the technical problems we faced in the beginning. And I hope you enjoyed the webinar. So first thing, can you all see my screen? Do you have any problems seeing the webinar, the content I'm sharing at the moment?
It's okay, Saif. I can see.
Okay, perfect. Okay, let's go. So basically, this webinar is based on a book called Techniques, New Products Management. And the whole idea is that we want to understand what are the techniques that can be used to attain speeds in new product development projects. As you all know, at the moment, with the advancement that's happening in technology, with the changes in the consumer demand, consumers are requiring every day new things, requiring the cycle of the development of new products to decrease as much as possible. And this is putting pressures on companies and organizations to try to cope up in order to enhance the products and roll out new products into the market. And as we have seen that the life cycle of a new, let's say a mobile phone has decreased from a couple of years into almost 6 months. Almost every 6 months we see a complete new phone from every manufacturer. And in some kind of manufacturers like Huawei or Oppo, we see that decreasing up to 3 months. So companies are trying to reduce the new product development project's life cycle and trying to attain speed in their product development projects. So we're going to try to go on a journey to try to understand how we as leaders inside our organizations can we try to enhance this and to increase the speed of our new product development projects. I've divided this webinar into 5 phases. You will have the organization phase, intensifying resource commitments, design for speed, prepare for ad manufacturing, and rapid marketing. Just a point at the beginning, we will have a Q&A at the end of the session, so please try to take notes of your questions, and I will answer it all by the end of the session. Thank you. So let's start. So in the organization phase, the first point is that as a leader, you need to use a dedicated cross-functional team. Now, one of the problems that's being faced with organizations is that they use some resources that they are not dedicated to a certain project. And the situation happens that you have a department that assigns one resource at the start of the project, and in the middle of the project, they pull out this resource because they need it somewhere else, and they assign another resource, and they do just a quick handover. And you find yourself in the middle of a big problem as a project leader that you have someone who has just come on board inside the project, and he has little information, he doesn't follow up, he needs a quite long time to ramp up and reach to the level that you are speaking at. So one of the major things that you have to avoid during any project that you would like to scale up or to increase its speed is not to use dedicated cross-functional team or resources. So this is a very important point, and I cannot stress enough that using people or using functions with different resources can cause lots of confusion and lots of problems. That you have an alignment with one person from manufacturing engineering, for example, and he hands over to another person and he has no idea on the agreements of the alignments you guys had. So having a dedicated cross-functional team is of utmost importance. The second point is using small groups and other techniques to minimize bureaucracy. So the problem that is faced in several projects that you find yourself in a big project, in a big team, especially in mega projects that takes up to 1 or 2 years to conclude, and you find yourself communicating with over 100 people. So some of the techniques that are being used by different project managers is try to create some core teams and extended teams. And the core team is the team that has to be fully aware of every step that's being done inside the project. And that is the team that is going regularly in the regular meetings, the daily or the weekly meetings with the project leader. So using small groups and trying to minimize the bureaucracy in the information, in the communication, will help you to attain much higher speed in your new product projects. The other point in the organization is that you have to empower your team. So as a leader or as a sponsor, empowering the team itself is of utmost importance, and motivating the team through incentives and rewards and protecting it. So one of the main problems that's being faced that you have a project leader and a project team, and they're not empowered enough to take decisions. Every step of the way, they have to go up to the steering committee, that to have to get approval on almost everything. And that's the problem. You have to establish a sort of a governance that the project leader has his own governance level, that he knows what he can approve and what he has to take approval for. And the project team has the same authority level as well, that they understand what they need, what they can go and do it themselves, and what they can approve, and what they have to get approval from the project leader and from the steering committee as well. So this kind of empowerment will help the team to try to take decisions in a faster way, which is one of the main obstacles you face inside new product development projects, that some team members are not able to take faster decisions because they have to wait for approval from either the project leader or the project sponsor or the steering committee, and they don't have a full understanding of the governance level that they are facing inside the project. So empowering your team, giving them delegation up to a certain level that enables them to do their daily work and does not cause obstacles and roadblocks. The other thing is that you have to motivate the team. So it's not just a job that's being done. The team has to have the passion and the motivation to do and to go the extra mile that's needed to achieve the targets for the project. And this is done can be done through different aspects. So one thing can be done through incentives. And when we say incentives here in the word, it doesn't have to be in terms of financial incentives. There are some other things. Some people are fully happy when they are just being recognized in front of the organization, trying to recommend someone inside the meeting and say they did a great job. This kind of incentives and reward will give them the passion and the drive to go forward and go the extra mile inside the project itself. The other point is that you need to destroy turf and territory. And the main problem that several organizations in different industries, either in software, in consumer goods, in industrial operations, they face a major problem that every function is acting as a silo, and they are protecting their own turfs and their own KPIs and territory. And they don't act with the mindset that you are a part of one team, and what matters in the end that the team achieve the success with the new product projects. But what they think of is that I have my own KPI, I have my own function, I have to protect this, and if it goes along good with the project, so be it. But if not, my own KPIs takes the first priority. So trying to destroy this kind of turf and territory will help you as a project leader, as a project sponsor, to try to understand what you can do to integrate the team. So it does not have to be silos. It has to be one team with one goal at the end, which is achieving the product itself or reaching the final end of the project. The other thing is that making sure that the supporting departments are ready when called on. Now, we see in different industries that in some industries that several functions don't step in until a certain phase. So let's say, for example, I have a new product. I'm manufacturing a new, let's say, a new washing machine, for example, and there are certain steps inside the project that you don't have the people from the production stepping in fully, or you don't have the people from the training for the marketing stepping in fully. So making sure that these supporting departments are ready when they are called on, are fully aware of the project, are fully aware of the current status, are up to date with the risks that we are currently facing, and are integrated from the beginning of the project, not just as an ad hoc. You're not just delivering something to someone else to go work on it. They have to be fully engaged from the beginning, even if they are not fully involved in the everyday meeting with the core project team. So ensuring that the department that's going to support you either in a certain phase inside the project or at the end of the project during the launch has to be fully aware, and they know that they have to be ready when they are called on during the project. You also need to develop an effective team leadership. And we see different projects failing miserably because there are no effective leadership inside the project team. And you turn it to the project leader and he doesn't know what to do. He's not acting as a leader. He's not trying to resolve conflicts. So trying to develop effective leadership inside the team and empowering the team, again, the empowerment part is of utmost importance. If you don't have an empowered leader inside the team is going to fail miserably in the end. So having a correct leadership that can inspire people, that can resolve conflicts and can take decisions when it's needed. This is a very important step that can actually accelerate your decision making and leading the project to be done in a faster time. And one of the hot topics that we are seeing these days is knowledge management. And I'm touching here on a point that people creating projects usually do not let's say, document the best practices, the lessons learned effectively. And even if they do it, it's not shared across the organizations that people can actually learn out of it. So trying to encourage organizational learning where people start learning from each other during different projects and start to document their own best practice and share it across the organization. Either it can be inside a knowledge management system that everyone inside the organization has access to, or it can be done through, let's say, a quarterly, a half annually, or an annual meeting where every team share their own best practices inside the project and transfer their knowledge from one project to the next, will help the different teams to solve this problem. I'll tell you one example I actually faced myself is that we had one project where we were working on changing a certain component, and we had no idea that this same exact projects occurred in Latin America almost 2 years before we did that. And because of this, we did not know the problems they faced, the risks they had, and we spent lots of time trying to reach our solution. And it took us almost double the time that we planned in the beginning because we did not foresee these risks. And if we had a correct knowledge management system in place that can transfer this knowledge across continents, across different organizational aspects, we could have saved lots of time for this. So this kind of organizational learning doesn't have to occur with people inside the same country only, but across the organization, especially in global organizations. And that's the first part, which is the organization one. Going forward to intensifying resource commitment part. So the first one, when you are in a new product development projects, you need to integrate the vendors as early as possible. One of the main issues that's being seen in different projects that you don't integrate your suppliers, your vendors, the people who are going to supply with the component, with the new technology that you're going to use. You don't integrate them early enough. Sometimes you integrate them after you reach the first half of the project and ask them, okay, I need this component, I have the design, you just do it. And not doing this, you don't gain the insight of the knowledge they already have as a vendor with this kind of technology or this kind of manufacturing. So integrating the vendors, and I'm talking here about physical products a little bit more, but it can also apply to software. So integrating vendors as early as possible during the project start and making them understand what you're going to achieve and engaging them inside the initial innovation process will help you to try to accelerate your projects. They will give you some aspects that you couldn't have seen because they have the know-how of something very specific, and they can even give you better suggestions so that you don't have to spend more money as you go along the projects. And another point is that you need to reduce the numbers as much as possible. I can tell you that interacting with different number of vendors on a similar components to keep just a backup is not very efficient. You need to keep a main vendor and a backup vendor just in place. But keeping a huge number of vendors will get you lots of miscommunication and communication errors and will lead to further delays. So the correct word here is focus. You need to focus on integrating the vendors as early as possible and reducing the numbers. You need also to integrate this kind of technology as early as possible. Try to understand if there is an update in this technology. What are the market trends regarding this technology? What are my core competency as an organization inside this? So let's say that you at the moment are trying to create a connected product. So you want to create let's say a connected water heater, a connected washing machine or anything. You need to try to understand what are my core competencies at this moment. And this technology, what is the foreseen trends going forward for it during the next 1, 2, 3, and 5 years? Understanding this and integrating this kind of mindset as early as possible in the project will save you lots of time that you don't end after 1 or 2 years of development with an obsolete technology and you have to pay a huge sum of money in order to recap all of this again. So we all understand that, especially in waterfall kinds of projects, not paying attention in the beginning will lead me to paying a huge sum of money in the end. So let's, in other words, paying more attention at the front end will save you lots of time at the back end. The other thing is that you need to integrate your sellers. So as we have seen in the moment with the digital trends and with the COVID-19 situation that we're currently seeing, there is a huge surge in digital and online e-commerce. And the companies who are already integrated their resellers completely inside their value chain and the supply chain have used this to a very high advantage. So integrating your resellers as you have integrated your vendors will help you to try to execute your commercial launch in the best and the most efficient way. And we can see that you can save lots of time during the product development, but you face huge obstacles during the commercial launch. So you need to understand that a new product development project doesn't just stop with delivering the product to the commercial team to sell it. You have to understand it's a complete integrated process until you have the product inside the market and the consumers are buying it. Until this moment, you're not finished. Also, you have to try to focus on keeping the numbers to a minimum. So focusing your biggest effort on the channels that are going to give you the most revenue or most outcome. Another thing is that you have to integrate the users. So the voice of the customer needs to be integrated as early as possible inside the project. And we can see here that there is something called a lead user. And the lead user is someone who the company gets on board inside the new product development project. And this person supports you in understanding what are the consumer needs, what are the trends going in the market for the consumer, how can you develop a product that benefits the consumer and solves his pain point, and at the same time enables you to have a successful launch. So integrating the voice of customer of the user or the consumer inside your product development project as early as possible during the market research and in the innovation process will support you in understanding the market needs, the consumer needs, and how you can benefit in meeting these needs with the efficient possibility. So understanding the consumer needs reduces the time, because if you do a user testing or the beta testing during the qualify phase and you find out that this is not what the consumer wanted, you will have to reloop an entire process. So integrating this as early as possible in the beginning will save you lots of time as you go in the project. You need also to use simultaneous or concurrent engineering. And the problem that we face sometimes is that people are just thinking of sequential. So I have requirements, I do design, then I go to implementation, verification, and maintenance. But what if a problem happened in the middle? Do I have to go all the way back? You have to understand that this is just not the concept of agile project management, but agility in itself has to be in the mindset of the entire project team. So you don't act as just one gate and go to the next, and I don't have to reloop. You have to keep into consideration that this is a complete iterative process to allow for some sort of an iteration that you don't need to reloop the entire process once more. And one very good example here that I can show you is that you see people start with the marketing with strategic planning, and they deliver to industrial design, who deliver to the production team. So this is the traditional way some companies are actually still working until today with this mindset. Sometimes it may work in certain conditions, but trying to integrate the entire team on one table, trying to understand the requirements, trying to build up, will save lots of time in iterations. The other point is that you need to get your suppliers involved through alliances, ventures, and develop long-term relationship with them. So, for example, when Google wanted to create Google Earth, they went on a complete joint venture with NASA, where they used the satellites and their resources to create this kind of application. And if this is not a very good example, another great example is what Uber is now doing with Volvo. So as you can see now, Uber is trying to go to the next level of autonomous driving, and integrating full cars with complete autonomous system that you can actually call an Uber and it would arrive at your place with no person sitting at the front seat, just a computer who can drive the car completely. So Uber made this kind of partnership with Volvo, who's actually leveraging their own knowledge inside the automotive systems, and as well gaining the insights from Uber how does this autonomous systems work, so that they can leverage as well in future cars or future developments. So creating partnerships with suppliers, with your joint ventures, will help you get your products as soon as possible into the market. Now we go to the, let's say I would face the fun part, which is the design. So you need to design for speed. And what do we mean by this? So the beginning, you can use computer-aided design and other forms of rapid prototyping. And I would like to show you a very nice example that I saw a couple of years ago of a company called Hopplast. So what this company did is that they were supplying a sort of a beer to different inns and different places across the US. And what the problem was being caused that when you do the brewing of the beer, you lose lots of the aroma. And this causes the beer in the end to not, let's say, taste very good. So in order to combine the beer that's being done being available at the let's say distributor side or at the inn or at the bar, in order to have a specific certain aroma, they created this kind of ad hoc part using 3D printing, and they designed this in order to hook it on this kind of glass, where they insert a small pellets when you drink, these pellets gets with the beer and it gets the beer the aroma that you want to drink it with. So you can choose from different pellets and you can actually drink the beer itself with different kind of aroma. And the great thing that they did, that they implied the 3D printing and the rapid and the automated CAD design, that they created such a very nice part using simple technology and applied it to be a complete product. So using the computer-aided design can help you to create some sort of a rapid prototyping to get a final good product in the end. The other thing is that design-aided manufacturing of reducing parts. So as we can see here, this is a part in the automotive vehicle support structure. As you can see, it has lots and lots of parts. And what you can do is that you can try to use design-aided manufacturing to use this number of parts. So if we go to the second picture, we reduced almost 10 parts into about 2. And to see the comparison in a much better way, you can see here that they started with almost 30 parts. And using design-aided manufacturing, they reduced it almost to 10, so 20 parts saving. And reducing the actual time of manufacturing, reducing the manufacturing cost, reducing even the total weight, which actually also pushes more into the cost. So using design-aided manufacturing in order to reduce the number of parts you have inside the product will be a very much beneficial part that gives you much more speed and traction during your project. Another great important point that's being applied in the automotive industry is using of common component across families. So what Volkswagen did in their family of electric vehicles across different, let's say, brands, so Volkswagen, Audi, Seat, Skoda, is that they use the same MEB product platform, where they have this kind of structure which is common along all of their electrical vehicles. And this saves lots of, let's say, time and as well money in new product development, that you don't need to reinvent the wheel or reinvent a completely new structure. You can use a common component across different products. So if they launch in the beginning the Volkswagen vehicle and I want now to launch the Seat or the Skoda one, I wouldn't spend more time on this kind of platform. I have it already on shelf. I will take it and integrate on it. So leveraging the usage of common component across families will help you and support you in reducing the time of your project. The other thing is that you need to make the product easy to test. So sometimes you find, especially in software, some companies rolling out a product in an alpha testing or a beta testing, and you try to go on different functions and the product is not easy to test. You have lots of let's say, clicks you have to do It's not optimized to the great user experience that you expect from a software product. So creating a product with the mindset of the user experience that it has to be less hassle in terms of reduced clicks, straightforward, easy to see, easy to implement, and easy to test will save you lots of time, because if you make it very complicated, you will find lots of bugs. You will find people coming forward. This is not easy to do. You have to reloop that again, and you will have to create sort of several iterations that would have been saved if you had created a product that's easy to test. The other thing is that you need to design the qualities that lead to fast trial, including the relative advantage. And what we mean here by that is that you need to do a correct minimal viable product. So if we take a look here and you see people start thinking that if I started with this kind of boat, the next step will be me going to this and then to this. And as you can see here, if you start with something, sorry to say, a garbage, you will end up with a complete garbage at the end. It will not be a good product. But you need to shift your mindset that you have to go at least with a minimum viable product. And when we say minimum viable product, it means it has to deliver the core functionality and to solve the consumer problem, to give in the consumer unmet need. So it has to be something like this, not something like this. So trying to understand the concept of a minimum viable product, what needs to be implemented, will save you lots of time of complete iterations that you will have to go back and reloop and start doing fixations instead of starting on a good, fresh, clean start. The other thing is that you need to use effective design practices, minimizing costly designs. So I don't know how much you guys remember this, but I'm sure that during several projects that you have always been in especially new products, you have seen design being changed even at the last minute. Either it's manufacturing, or either it's goods, physical goods, or in software. So last minute changes, and it's always in design. And sometimes in the physical goods, it's quite difficult to do something like this because you have already established the stamps and the tools, and changing anything now will require a huge sum of money. So if you take a look at this graph, you would see that as we start going more into the development time, we start seeing the number of design changes and requests as increase heavily down the line. And this causes lots of problems, not just in lost time and iterations, but also in costs. And you start asking the question, okay, where the hell were these guys when we started the project? Why didn't they speak up? So trying to understand what are the design requirements and trying to lock the parts that will have a long lead time, especially in manufacturing goods, will help you to attain speed in your projects. But if people didn't focus and wake up and start asking for changes as early as possible, they will end up in the end on delaying the project several weeks, several months, and maybe goes to years. The second part, the fourth part we're going to is the rapid manufacturing. And the first one is simplifying documentation. So I would tell you that from my experience, I've seen that you have new products and the product development team starts doing lots of great work, but they fail miserably on documentation. And the problem that this caused the guys for the manufacturing, that they don't have enough good information that they can start building their process on it, and they start building the production line and the testing part on it, and they end up with lots of problems during the first trials and the manufacturing trials. And when they try to investigate why this is happening, because either the documentation was very complex and lots of things got lost in the end, or because they did not get everything. So you need to simplify the documentation as much as possible. Don't make it a zigzag and like this. Try to keep it clean and neat as possible so that the people from manufacturing side start to understand. And also, this is not just for manufacturing as well, but you can implicate this also in software. If you don't have clear requirements, if you don't have quite good documentation, you will have the developers creating something completely different than what you're expecting. So documentation, as much as tedious sometimes it may get, as much as important as it is. using standardized process plan. So the guys from the manufacturing side will like this. So ideally, when you have a new product and you start manufacturing it, they create a standard, let's say, a standard operating procedure. And using this kind of standard process plans and trying to build on best practices that were done in other factories manufacturing the same thing. So if I have a factory sitting in the US doing a cooker, for example, and I'm doing a similar factory here in Egypt doing a similar cooker, I can just try to leverage on the standard process plan that I already have in that factory and use it again here with some modifications, but I don't have to reinvent the wheel. And also you have to establish standard operating procedures. This will help you into trying to understand what is the defects inside the process and solving it as fast as possible. The other thing is the uses of computer-aided manufacturing. So as you can see in this photo here, people create the design and start to create it on softwares, and this software can actually in the end give you the final tool in a perfect way. So using the computer-aided manufacturing, understanding how it can help you in speeding up the process and trying to create changes as early as possible in the software, trying to see what you can optimize will help you in your project. So it's not just about the design, but using and leveraging this kind of tools, trying to reduce the time of the manufacturing, trying to reduce the number of parts, trying to reduce the process itself, which will add at the end leverage into reducing the time to launch, will help you in reducing the time of your project. Another great point is the JIT, or the just-in-time system. So you need to go in just-in-time delivery of material and components, because some companies try to leverage their supply chain and they want to reserve their net operating working capital. So instead of ordering components very early, they start ordering it very late during the project. And sometimes some problems happen either with the supplier that's going to supply you the product, either with the supply chain itself, in the transportation, in the logistics, or even the customs inside the company that you are importing in. So depending on the just-in-time delivery and trying to streamline your supply chain process, like companies like Toyota or like Nike or Dell or Zara, all of this will help you in trying to reduce the time that you need in order to reach the final product. The other thing is that you need to integrate the product use testing and starting it as early as possible. And I'm speaking here also to the guys from software industry. The product use testing has to be done as early as possible. Not doing so will not get you the feedback that you need from the consumer or the tester itself, and you will end up with something in the end that may have lots of bugs that you did not discover and you have built on it. So recapping and relooping will lead you to use more time and have your product delayed by several weeks, days, or months. So integrating the product use testing and starting it as early as possible you can have inside the project will help you to try to save some time on the back end. The last thing in the manufacturing part is the make or buy decisions. So sometimes we are facing a decision, either we make a certain component or we buy it. And sometimes it's not just about the speed for the project or attaining a high speed and finalizing it, but there are some other aspects as well. One thing is the intellectual property. So you may have to think, is this part going to be, I have to put an IP on it, so I have to make it inside, or it doesn't need an IP, so I can just outsource it to anyone else? Do I own the design, or this is some design from some supplier? Will this help me to break even? Does the make or buy better? Is the make or buy better financially? Is this component of strategic importance? Is it something like the platform that Volkswagen is using across the different platforms? Is it something I have to make in-house? And how it will help me with the time to market? So you have to think from just not the speed side in the make versus buy decision, but from other aspects as well. And as you can see here from this chart, just in a fast way, that if you have strategic importance and if you have an urgency, maybe you can partner with a strategic partner that you can make a deal out with him or with the company itself, that you can enhance the go-to-market. But if this doesn't have a very strategic importance and it has a high urgency and you cannot just make it, you have maybe to buy it. Now we go to the last part in the marketing side, which is prepare for rapid manufacturing. So using rollouts in place of test marketing. So sometimes you do market testing in specific, let's say, constraints. And instead of doing so, maybe you can do a complete rollout with the complete marketing plan in a very small market, so that you can see the entire plan itself working out, and you can start to understand where are the defects, where can I enhance, and then scaling it up and leveraging up. And one great old example, let's say, from this is what Facebook did with their initial rollout. They rolled out the product completely, but just limited it into Harvard University students. So maybe this is, let's say, a small example, but leveraging on this in different aspects. Maybe you want to launch a new product that's going to be launched in the entire of Egypt, but instead of just testing it with a few constraints in a couple of areas, I can just focus maybe on a small governorate, let's say Asyut, and launch it completely there. And from the complete launch, I can see what are the logistics problem, what are the marketing problem, what are the product feedback. And doing so completely gives you a holistic overview what you can do in order to enhance your complete launch in the end. So this will increase your speed, that you don't go out with a complete rollout everywhere where you have lots of problems and you don't have enough time to fix it, and you don't just do a small test markets in some places and you don't see the complete plan working out. The other thing from the marketing side is that you can see the firm's reputation ahead of marketing. So word of mouth. Some companies started to do very nice things, that before launching a new product into certain places, and in order to scale up the commercial launch and scale up the marketing side, they started doing certain aspects in different markets. So one example is that you can go doing something like corporate social responsibility activities. You can start with small campaigns on active products that you already have, so that you can get the word of mouth. You can start giving some preferences or some giveaways for your consumers. So building and even capitalizing on your current firm's reputation to increase the word of mouth around the firm itself and around their products will help you in scaling the marketing with the new products. The third thing is that you need to focus spending in channels for immediate market awareness. And what I mean here is that you have different marketing channels, and you need to focus your spending on the parts where you have your consumer. So you have to identify, okay, my consumer has a certain persona and he is existing heavily across these channels. So I will focus my spending here. Maybe your consumer is only existing on the digital channels, so I'm speaking on social media. Maybe he is a person who's going into a brick and mortar store, so I'll focus on physical location, maybe on radio. Maybe he is a person who are regularly on emails, and then I will send him an email. So trying to focus the marketing efforts on the channels that will give you immediate awareness will help you in scaling the marketing or the commercial launch. The other thing is making trial purchasing as easy as possible. And the free trial here doesn't mean just a free trial and you can use the product as you want. So sometimes in software, you see a product that you can have a free trial for 14 days, for 30 days, 7 days. You try it, and if you like it, you buy it. So what I mean here by making trial purchasing as easy as possible is you need, for example, to make it for software, just one click. You don't need the person to enter his name, his first name, his last name, his email, his phone number, where he's working, what's his address, where did he hear about the product. So making this kind of trial purchasing complicated, very tedious, will not help you into scaling up the product into the market. So what several companies has now did is integrating their trial purchasing through other methods, such as Google, sign in with Facebook, Twitter, email, phone. So just one click and you have the product. This is for the software part. So for the physical goods, you need to ensure that your product is available in the high traffic stores with stock level monitored. So sometimes in order to achieve a very fast launch, you need to make sure that you are focusing your efforts on the stores with the high traffic where you will find your own consumer. So not spreading your distribution channel very thin, focusing it will ensure that you have a fast product launch. The other thing is that the consumer service or the customer service. So I would tell you know from an experience, I bought a small software a couple of years ago. It was a video editing software, and I did have several problems with it. So I started calling the customer service on the phone. So I waited almost 15 minutes until someone answered. And after they answered, the service was very terrible that I decided I don't want the product anymore. Just take it back and give me my money back. So ensuring that your customer service is in place, capable of handling the product launch as early as possible and testing it is of utmost importance. So one thing is that you need to ensure that for the guys sitting in the call centers, the guys that are sitting on the computers listening to the consumer have all the documentation in place, up to date, with the checklists that support them during the call itself, so that they don't take too much time. For example, for the guys doing the consumer goods fixations, so you need, for example, to make sure that they are doing some field and on-site trials. Maybe I will have a product somewhere and I will get several technicians to try to fix it, and we can see what the problems they are having. What are the updates? How we can improve the service experience for the consumer. And you need to stress test your call center. I can't stress this enough. Otherwise, you will find this person here sitting with these tons of phones and not being able to answer any one of them. So you have to understand that before launching a product, in order not to have a problem during the launch, you need to stress test your call center. And what I mean by this, you have to overload the call center at some point and see how they are acting under pressure, how they are acting with the phones ringing all the time. Doing this will put some procedures in place to avoid any problems during the launch. And integrating your customer service team as early as possible during the alpha and beta testing. These guys are sitting with the consumer. These guys are dealing with the problems that your product is going to have. So their input is very important. They have very good insights, and they will help you in order to enhance the product in the best way possible, because they see through the eyes of the consumer. And that's all from my side. Thank you for listening. Now we're going to open the floor for Q&A.
So I have a question. First of all, thank you so much for this insightful presentation. I think your pace of talking was matching perfectly the topic in terms of speed. But I have a question. So I know that it's really good to have this or attain this kind of speed in the product development. But I think that attaining speed comes at the expense, or you have to pay certain expense for this speed. So is it always necessary to go for full speed, or perhaps some cases you don't need this kind of speed so that you can save some money in the development?
So thank you, Mohammed, very much for the question. So I would say that yes, attaining speed comes at a certain expense. It puts the team under pressure. It puts your resources under stress, and sometimes mistakes do happen. But I would say that doing this in a systematic way, in an organized way, where you have your team trained to do this, doing this not just as something for specific projects, but integrating this into the new product development process inside your organization will make your team feel that this is just a normal day at work. It's not something I'm doing because I would like to attain speed in this project. Because I think that attaining speed is not specifically done for specific projects, but with the current pressure coming from the consumers, their unmet needs, their continuous change in demands, and with the technology and the high competition in different markets, I think that attaining speed needs to become something of a culture, not just something that we apply to specific projects sometimes. So I think integrating this inside the process for the new product development inside your organization, ensuring that it's in place, people are trained on it, and they are using the best practices of their projects that they have done before, and building on this inside the process itself will ensure that this kind of mistakes that should happen with this kind of speed doesn't regularly happen.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree with you, and I just wanted to add one point that perhaps also having some sort of like a sponsor in the organization, someone from the senior management who is always supporting the product development team. You know, there are lots of politics in product development, so having this kind of like advocate for the team will facilitate so many things, and it will speed up as well.
Yes, you're completely right. So having a sponsor is something, and this is the part of leadership. It's not just the project leader. You need to have an active sponsor who is advocating for the team, who's protecting the team from different changes. So I would tell you that lots of times I face in different projects, in different organizations, that there are huge change requests coming out at the last minute. Not just design, even specifications. And you just try to explain to people, guys, this doesn't work. It's not something like I click on a button and it changes. Especially with physical goods, it's very problematic because you pay investments in tools and in machinery, and you cannot just get it back to supplier and fix it. It's a complete, long, heavy investment process that you need to take into consideration that the requirements are logged at a certain stage. And having a sponsor that protects the team from this kind of changes, who puts a hold to this, is one of the most important things that, if it's not present, will cause the entire project even to shut down or fail.
Yes, I agree. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Hi, Saif. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
It was really very informative, and you touched so many topics, but as Mohammed said, you did it in a speed that we were able to cover up a lot of topics that I believe each one of them can take a presentation on its own.
Yes, yes.
Talking about like the leadership part and just for a product owner or a product manager, name it however you will name it. I believe Mohammed, when he said like the source of like protection, the product owner or at this level of projects, I think it should be having like he should be like the mini CEO for this product, that they have absolute power to push back against any stakeholders, because especially like I'm coming from software background, yes, we can make changes along the way, but I would really try to like, from what you are saying now in product development and machinery, I don't think that there is no way you can change specifics when you are in the middle of the project. If you are having like lines and like, I don't know, like how can you do this even?
Thank you, Mahmoud, very much for your questions. So the first part I just want to highlight is that I would a little bit disagree with you on the part that the product owner or the product manager is a mini CEO, because the problem we product managers face is that we have to influence without authority, so to speak, over people. So you may have specific authority on the specifications, on the backlog, but you don't have authority over the other team members that you have. You're not their boss. You're not their functional boss. You're not their operational one, and you don't fill in the end their performance appraisal. So you have little authority over the people. You may have an authority over the product itself in some way, but in the end, you have different stakeholders. So I wouldn't classify the product owner or product manager as a mini CEO. I would classify him as an influencer. He is a person who is trying to accomplish his target and his tasks through influencing others. And this is why he's classified, from my point of view at least, as a leader, because he's not using an authority to get people to do what he wants. He's using influencing and let's say discussion, and I wouldn't say compromises, but consensus to get the product in the end to launch. The other thing, to answer your question, I think that yes, in sometimes I would say from manufacturing point of view, for example, for us, you have a product owner or a product manager, and you have a project leader, and also you have a sponsor. So the product manager is the one responsible for the requirements and for the market launch and the commercial launch and commercializing the product. And the project leader is the one who is owning and responsible for protecting the project. But in the end, even these two people with the authority or the power that they have, even with a project manager, you need a sponsor to try to protect the project. So I would say that I have seen several top management level personnel who are trying to influence the project to go their way because they think that they know better for the company instead of the people who are actually working inside the project and who started the innovation process from the beginning. And having a sponsor for the project or the product development process overall is what acts as a barrier to protect the team from this kind of influences. Does that answer your question?
It does to an extent, just like from my background, the kind of product manager, I'm just talking about the experience that I had. Product owners or product managers was like, one time I was working with a product owner from Oracle back in the Bay Area. And he was reporting to the CEO directly, like he was handling a product by itself. And he was reporting to CEO because it was a huge product. So that was my understanding that he has like the power. I don't know, maybe that was my experience. So that's why I said that has absolute power. But what you were saying make a lot of sense to me, because sometimes it's just like you need, of course, someone to protect you from higher management or to influence and to be like your guardian angel or something like this. But thank you, Saif, so much. That's really important.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say that what you said makes perfect sense, because sometimes, yes, you have let's say in big companies, you have a CEO and someone working directly reporting to the CEO called a group product manager or a group product owner, let's say. So this is the person who is handling all of or responsible for all the products that are launching inside the organization. But as big as this person might be and as much influence that he might have, but he reports to the CEO, and sometimes you have a VP of product that doesn't have any reports or any people reporting to him. And he has to work with other stakeholders who are working in different functions, who have much higher power because they control over other resources that he needs for the project to complete or the product to be launched.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yes, thank you
so much.
Is there any other questions?
May I ask one?
Yeah, sure, of course, please.
Do you know who is the faster product development in this world? Is there a ranking for the faster product development in this world or not?
I would say that this cannot be I wouldn't say measured, because you have different aspects. So sometimes when you say the fastest, I can be the fastest, but every time I launch a failed product. So to classify someone as the fastest, it would have, from my perspective at least, it would have to be a KPI that's measured across different aspects. So maybe I launch too many products and too many fail and just few succeed. So it has to take into consideration different aspects like the speed from starting the project until the end, because sometimes some companies don't declare when they started the project. Sometimes companies have in the pipeline lots of projects that started a couple of years ago and they are launching now, and because you started only seeing the trend now, they believe they are the fastest. So, for example,
But if we go to the same field you are working in, home appliances field, from your point of view, who is the best company in this field making these techniques for new product development, doing faster, doing quickly, doing better, more than other companies, in your opinion?
well, it will be a very biased question to be honest. I would say it's my company.
Not electric.
No, I would okay. If I took it for example to mobile industry, so we have seen lots of new players like Oppo, like Huawei, like different others who have started creating, and Xiaomi as well, who are creating a phone every couple of months, which is quite crazy because sometimes maybe they are exploring an unmet need or a very niche segment that they launched this specific phone for. But I would say that having a measurement, a KPI or an indicator that shows the fastest new product development company is something that's not really going to be happening soon, because there is a hidden aspect that we're not seeing. So, for example, if we're speaking about the 5G technology, we can see that different companies started the 5G several years ago, started putting their investment in this several years ago. But when we see the first one who's coming out with this technology, does this mean that this is the person who is the fastest because he started early or he started late? No, he maybe started late, but he was the fastest because of different other aspects. So I would say that having a KPI or an indicator that shows who is the fastest company in the field, in a certain field, is not something that's easily measured, so to speak.
Okay. Is it possible in the future you can take us in some sort of details in a success story from start to the end, how they do? Take an example or the model of development a product from the beginning to the end of the story?
Yes, I can completely do this. So I have different examples from different industries. Some things I worked on, some things I didn't work on, but I know the entire story of it. So I think maybe this would be a very good topic for the next webinar, to have a complete story started from where did the insight generate, where was the unmet need, and going to the innovation process, how we created the requirements, how we understood what the consumer want, and the iterations did, and then into the development, and then understanding the commercial launch, how it's going to be planned. I think that would be a very great topic for the next webinar, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
Excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. So we still have a few minutes. So is there any other question?
Okay, thank you, Saif. I don't think I have any questions, but I won't say that, from my opinion, there are some other methods that can speed up product development. And maybe it's not considered in the core of product development, but I think sometimes OEM products and acquisition of trending companies, small trending our startups, sometimes help speeding up the product development cycle, because you are acquiring too much. Because you are acquiring a lot of experience and resources by acquisition, for example. Another important thing that I think also works well in software industry and manufacturing, that every company should have like a technology center that is developing modules that can fit and adapt can fit flexibly with any project, and this I mean, the technologies and should be on shelf inside the company. So whenever we are developing a new product or a new software, we are going to pick up some modules and integrate them flexibly and easily. So
I fully agree with you, Shadi, on this. So I would say from experience, for example, we have different modules that are going on a global level, and these modules are in place so that any part of the world or in our organization can just pick off shelf a certain component and reuse it. And I think that maybe also in software that some companies are creating their own toolkit that they can integrate into any new product or any new software that they are creating that can, let's say, upscale or put their infrastructure of this kind of software in place. So I would fully agree with you on this. And also on the other part regarding the OEM, yes, in some situations, especially also it's like a make or buy decision, but looking on a bigger scale of the entire product. Sometimes you want to go to the market very fast and you don't have the time even to do a new product development process inside your organization. So you either take a product off shelf from an OEM or you go through an NPD process with the OEM where they are the owner of the NPD process and you are like the sponsor for it. So yes, it works in other ways as well. Okay. Yes.
Can I say just one last thing?
Sure,
thing,
please.
When
please.
we're talking about the how fast and what company and product development, I think if we can one time make it talking like about the Toyota model, Toyota product development model back in like in the early 2000s. We're talking about like the Toyota model and how the 2006. And from the Toyota product development model came the lean startup model.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
I'm sure a lot of you have heard that lean startup model because they used how fast Toyota was able to integrate between people, processes, and technologies and all work together to kind of, I don't know if they are the fastest. I don't know that for sure to measure this is going to be really hard, but I think their model was really successful into like creating like innovation and cars basically. So
yes, you're completely right. You're completely right.
So just but thank you again, Tiff.
Thank you. Okay, everyone. If there is no other questions, I think we can close here. Thank you very much for attending, and I apologize again for any lateness in the start due to the technical difficulty you were facing. Thank you, and hope to talk to you and see you soon in the next webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks.